Today we have Luke Falk. If you don't know who that is, former Washington State quarterback, NFL quarterback, the original Pac 12 all time leading passer, not the new Pac 12, the old school Pac 12, is sitting here with us. Uh, I'm going to call you Coach Luke Falk just because it sounds better. So, Coach Falk, thanks for being here this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be part of the show.
Yeah, like I told you, I'm fanboying out because, like I told you before, uh, I was the one guy that would stay up and watch Pac-12 games, and I loved Mike Leach's offense. So I was like, if it was a Friday night after a football game, I made sure to stay up and watch. If it was a Saturday night, I made sure to stay up. Um, if my girlfriend was around, now my wife, I was like, hey, I got to watch this game at 10 o'clock at night. And she goes, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I got to have it on somewhere. And so I watched all of that, watched you guys, your success at Washington State. So it's kind of weird that I get to talk to you. Like, hey, I watched him on TV. Now he's here. It's very
Well,
weird.
I appreciate you having me on. I was telling you, you have quite the setup. It sounds like your wife is a football junkie. She's the one that set it all up for you. So shout out to her.
Well, she puts up with football, let's put it that way. She puts up with it. She,
Nice.
I'm allowed to watch 1 or 2 games every Saturday on the big TV. I can have another one going on my laptop, and I'm allowed to watch the Bears on Sundays. After that, after that game's done, she goes, "All right," and changes it, like, "We're done." So she puts up with it.
Nice. So she's getting her last little stitch of breath before the football season comes down.
Oh, yeah, because I coach football, basketball, and softball. I do all 3, and the June is jam packed because we probably just had 40 basketball shootout games throughout the month of June. We all host them. Then I have football camp, then I'll have football camp in July. So June, she holds her breath. She's like, "Oh my God, he's still busy." As a teacher, I don't know what summer break is because we're just constantly grinding it out. Once July hits, she goes, "Okay, it's just football." I'm like, "It's just football," and she goes, "Okay, I can live with that."
Nice.
Uh, and with our firstborn child being due in football season, she's like, I know you'll take your 5 days off well with me, then you got to go right back. Like she already knows. And I'm like, yep, she are.
Well, you got a good one there. I mean, takes a lot to keep up with the coaches deal.
Oh, yeah. And I'm going to tell you the funny thing. One time, so, on ESPN, they only show like the big time contracts for college coaches, like, for the big timers. So one day she goes, why didn't you just do college coaching? Look at the money they're making. I said, well, let me tell you the real thing about what college football coaches make. Number one. Number two, you think I'm gone now. If I did college, I'd really be gone.
Yeah.
And she's
Yep.
like,
Sure.
she goes, well, if you made that money though. And I said, but that would take me 15 years to get there. We're not doing this. Like, you understand.
Right. Yeah, no, I was in college coaching. My first job was $27,000 at Wingate coaching Division II football, and I had a blast. And then I did get a pay raise to $32,000, so that was pretty cool. That was awesome. But no, I had a blast there. I worked for a great guy, Joe Reich. Still talk to him. Still in my inner circle, and just it was a total fun experience. And but yeah, not a lot of money left over after everything's said and done with those entry level jobs.
No, no, no. And I'm too old now. That was the plan, was to do college. But at the time I loved high school coach. I was like, I'll take the high school route, then college. And as I started doing it, I'm like, Steve, you took the dumb route. Like it may never happen now. And now I'm about to be 35, and I'm like, it might be too. It's just not. Once you get settled and it's going, it's like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
it's a lot. It's a lot for sure. But I think you're in a good spot and you're probably making a pretty good impact where you're at. So, and congrats on the new kiddo coming. That's really the fun. I mean, football coaching, being involved in that, all that all fails in comparison to being a pops.
oh yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, it was crazy. We found out in December, and we're like, we got plenty of time to get this going. And now we're at it's 9.5 weeks till he shows up, and we're like, oh my god, like it's here, like it's gonna happen.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Happy for you.
I
Get
appreciate it.
uh get whatever sleep you can. I'm sure everyone tells you that. That's certainly
Oh,
sleep deprived for a little bit. But being a coach, you probably already have built that muscle up a little bit.
well, I also think our dogs know there's a baby coming because they're starting to wake me up at like 6 a.m. and they've never done that before. So I think they instinctively know. So they're waking me up early to get me going.
Yeah. Well, if they start waking you up at midnight, 1, 2, 4, 6, now they're really training you.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm waiting for next is that to happen.
That
Um,
would be fun.
so obviously, if people don't know, you played at Washington State. Um, the one thing I don't know if people realize is I believe you were a walk on at Washington State, correct? Or was it at another school?
Nope, I did walk on at Washington State. Yep. Which
So
apparently there won't be any more walk-ons now, right? With that whole settlement deal.
that's exactly where I was going with next was, a former walk on that worked his way to getting a scholarship and becoming a starter. Now you're seeing how college football is kind of changing and pretty much walk-ons are going to be gone. And like I walked on at Eastern Illinois and I was too small. Like I was, believe it or not, I was 6'5", 275 pounds, too small to be like an O
Yeah.
lineman. And it just became a lot. A walk-on's a lot. Like you have to do so much extra stuff to like make sure you're noticed. Um, if you could talk about that experience, but also what does that mean when there's no more walk-ons? Like those stories may now disappear, and which is sad.
Yeah, it's really weird because I was part of the Burlsworth Trophy ceremony and how great of a family they are down there, and what it is, it's rewarded the most outstanding walk-on. And Brandon Burlsworth, if you don't know his story, you need to go look that up. It's on Netflix. And really what they do is they do a great job of highlighting really the grittiness of being a walk-on, and they celebrate their brother and they honor their brother that way, or Marty honors his brother that way. And just got thinking, I'm like, well, is this going to be around now given
Mhm.
what's going on? Um, for me, I wish that they still had it, because I think of our team at Washington State. It wasn't just me who walked on. We had our starting left guard, Gunnar Eklund, who was a walk-on. We had our starting left tackle, Joe Dahl, who was a walk-on, ended up playing in the NFL. We had guys like Parker Henry, Colton Teglovic. I mean, really key players that I don't know if they'd be part of. How many scholarships is it? 105?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if guys like that, I mean, probably Joe would be in the 105, but I don't know if I make the 105 initially. And so it's like, I think we're going to probably miss out on some of those great stories that the guy just wasn't in a position, where he hadn't physically developed or hadn't just got to that maturation process. I see some of these high school kids where they're a June birthday, and instead of getting held back, they're just the young guys in the group, so they haven't physically developed. And maybe the solution to that is they go play at a lower level type of system, because now you can transfer and you're not getting penalized for it. So it's kind of like the farm system now, probably. Rather than
Mhm.
being a walk on, you're going to go play at a lower division, play well, prove yourself, and move up. So it's just different. It's different. It's not the era that I obviously played in and know. And when I got into coaching, it was a whole lot different even then. My first job, it wasn't as much, because I think the purity of Division II football still replicated what I was used to.
Mhm.
And then as you move up, things are a little bit different. But yeah, I think, and if I tell, so I work with some quarterbacks now doing the mind strength training. I always get asked the question about walking on, and I just give a caution or a red flag beforehand. I said, it's different now than it was when I did it. When I did it, it was really hard. There was a lot of uphill battles, but now if you get in that position, well, they're always trying to out recruit you. They're always trying to get the transfer portal. So I don't know if people necessarily get a fair shake. And how many people are like Mike Leach and say, I don't care how many stars you are or how much money we've invested in you. I'm going to play the best guy and give them equal opportunity. So without him, nobody would know my name. One, because it was a great system, a great coach, all that. But most importantly, he gave me an opportunity and he stuck to
Mhm.
it. So kind of how that looked like, and I've shared it before a few times, is I first got to Washington State and I was fifth on the depth chart, and I immediately thought I made a mistake. I had some self-doubt. I had some like, what the F?
Yeah.
I hated our strength coach. I love him now, but his name was Jason Lascauzo, and he certainly was the weed out guy. And me being a walk on, and we had a 4-star in my highest, recruiting whatever profile or what do they call it, rivals or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, one of the highest Washington State had gotten in years. And here he is in my same class. It was like, man, the odds looked really slim. And thankfully, I had a mental performance coach and I had a great environment and system around me, and I just kept pushing and persevering, and eventually I got lucky. Eventually, people transferred out and competed against the 4-star the next spring, and was got put on scholarship 1 year after, and then eventually was playing a year and a half after I first walked on against USC, and really never turned back. So just I got really lucky, and not to say that there wasn't a lot of hard work
Mhm.
involved, but as the old saying goes, preparation meets opportunity. And I was very prepared, and I always use the contrast. Well, when I got to the NFL, I was unlucky. And what did that mean? Well, I didn't prepare as great, and I got the opportunity. I didn't have the outcome that I had in college, but it wasn't anything that was different besides the one formula in that equation was that I didn't do the things that I needed to help get me to that level of preparation that I was in college when I got my opportunity. Because virtually the same situation happened. A guy got injured. I went and played, and in college, I played great. In fact, my first start was the Pac-12 Player of the Week. In
Uh-huh.
the NFL, I got an opportunity, and I did. I did. I didn't play well, and then eventually I got cut, and there it is.
Um, what was obviously NFL was NFL. What was the big difference there? Like your opportunity in college, opportunity in NFL, it's the same thing, but what was anything big differently? Like Mike Leach's offense is very simple. You guys are very that going to the NFL now. It's complex. Like I just watched videos this morning of play calls in the NFL. I'm like, oh my god, the words they use.
Yeah.
Like, what was that
Well,
change?
you have Ace 92 versus a run-on sentence. I can't even recite one of the NFL plays just because all that stuff. But that was the big one. But really the biggest thing for me that was the difference maker, I actually did a little thing on it yesterday, was just my mindset. I went from walk on hungry, and then the more success that I had, even going into my senior year, I allowed what I called the trappings of success. There are some people that use success to continue to motivate them to be the best that they can be, and it never changes them. And there are some who allow it to create entitlement, to create feeling of like people owe you certain things, or maybe you don't have to put the effort forth. So I quit working on my mind strength. I quit working on the things that helped me that be a great player in 2015 and 2016. I didn't hang out with my teammates and take the time to personally invest in them. In the weight room, I had modified things rather than doing and showing the team, hey, I'm working my butt off like I did prior. My regimen was a lot more loose. I had allowed a poor negative environment around me at that time. I had a lot of craziness going on, and I didn't have the skills, or I didn't have the discipline to create the boundaries to help not allow that to get in my inner world. And really, that mindset led to up and down senior season, really, really, really rocky. And then that mindset further continued when I fell in the draft, because I was still holding on to the projections of being a second or third rounder from a lot of agents saying, hey, I would have come out, been a second or third rounder after my junior season. And, so I took that entitlement mentality, that victim mentality, that hurt, that upset, that anger, that look for and find excuses rather than solutions. And what I say is I victim my way right out of the NFL. Sure, the playbook was different. Sure, I had to go under center. Sure, I did all those things. But had I had the same mentality that I had at Washington State, I have no doubt that I would have succeeded. I have no doubt that I would have taken the time and gotten the proper reps and meeting with the coaches and being just a gym rat, a film rat, all that stuff. I wasn't. I did what was asked of me, not anything more. And rather than training hard in the off season while I was enjoying the paycheck, it
Uh-huh.
really, and I think a large part of that, and why I coach this in my mind strength training, is you got to make sure you've got the right people around you, and you're intaking the right information, because it's like, you can have all the mind strength in the world, in my opinion, but eventually it's like letting the Trojan horse come in, and it'll take you out from within. And for me, I just, as I got successful, the people in my inner circle, guess what? They had the trappings of success happen to them as well. So it was just a vicious cycle. But ultimately, it comes down to me and what I chose and chose not to allow, and what I chose and chose not to focus on. Um, I don't even know if that was grammatically correct right there. It probably wasn't. I had a social sciences degree, so forgive me on that. Yeah,
No,
but
I get it.
that was the biggest difference. And then obviously, it's the best of the best. It's you go from high school and it's all the top tier players there in college, and then all the top tier players within the NFL. But the thing about the NFL, it's not only the new incoming crop, it's the guys who are already established in there. So you have guys who are 15-year pros or 12-year pros or 7-year pros. I mean, it's the 1% of the 1% who are at that stage. And so I don't have regret because I think everything happens for a reason, and I use that as a great apprenticeship for me. It was like a great period for me to do what I'm doing now, because I wouldn't have that perspective had I not gone through walking on, getting to the top of the mountain, playing for an absolute legend, allowing trappings of success to happen, and the up and down type of deal, and then taking that perspective and then going into the private coaching world, and then going into the college coaching world, and then now back into the private coaching world, what I'm doing now. So I've really kind of seen it from all different angles, as being the player and then now being the coach, and really having from nobody knows you to everybody knows you to, okay, you fell, okay, now you're back on the rise. So I don't know if that's the answer you were quite looking for. It was a long-winded one though.
No, that's perfect because that's your personal journey because, I have a hard time watching like the ESPNs of the world now, but I remember the stigma of Mike Leach was his quarterbacks can't play in the NFL because of the style of offense they run. So every time a quarterback got drafted from his team, they were like, why? Because they can't do it and everything else. And so your journey's a little different of like, it's not that you couldn't have played, it was something else outside of it. Like you said, you could have played, you could have done it. Other quarterbacks have like Minshew is still in the NFL. Like you could
Yeah, he's
do it.
playing. He plays well. He's playing well in the NFL. And no, I just think now I'm not. I'm here to say that I think Leach's system is way more quarterback friendly than any of that other
Mhm.
one.
Right.
For the average Joe, for like a guy like me, you get a Tom Brady or people like that. I mean, Tom Brady he's forgotten more things than I'll ever know about football. But for a guy to come in and just, my wife could play in the air raid system,
Right.
because how Coach Leach teaches it is so black and white, and he is simple. And people use simple as a dirty word in coaching, which I don't think it is, because once again, I've spoke on this. Mike Leach is a master at not what he knew. It wasn't about how much he could get his quarterbacks to know. Like, I've gone and I've talked to a lot of quarterbacks, and they can recite everything in the book: coverage, front, stunts, pressures, whatever you want to talk about. But when it comes to being on the field, they can't do anything with it. They don't know how to apply it. So, this old adage that knowledge is power, that's BS. It's the application of knowledge that's power. And what Leach did better than anybody, in my opinion, was he found a system and a way to get his players to apply what he wanted. And what he wanted was what was going to move the needle, what's essential. So, like on every play, I know quarterbacks and coaches, they have like their pre whatever checklist, and a lot of them don't even follow it. It's just for talk. It's just for putting on the whiteboard. Leach didn't care about that crap. It was, what is your job on this play? So for me, when I get up there, if we have a certain call on, okay, what are the key points that I need to look at? And everything else I can eliminate. It's not about how much can I add, it's about really how much can I take away. And that can allow you to play faster, play more decisive. Whereas so many coaches want to bog you down with safeties, looking at this, looking at that. But does it really apply to what the play is to help you execute your job? So when I was in college coaching, it's like, okay, here's the play. What's most important? That's what you're going to focus on. And what Coach Leach, what it came down to is, reads are sacred, put the ball in play. And really, he talked about being the same guy, finding a way to elevate your team. And if you can do those three things, you're going to play well.
Right. Right. That's why I kind of what made me fall in love with like the spread system was watching Texas Tech beat Texas. I remember being in high school watching it. My high school, we were under center triple option, so spread was like voodoo. Like you don't touch it, like or whatever. And I said, when I get into coaching, I want to learn because I watched them. I watched Tim Tebow. I watched all them play, and and back then you didn't have access to Google and YouTube as much. There wasn't as
Yeah.
much stuff, so I'd had to go ask. And then the older I got, the more stuff I got. You know, I remember finding a Mike Leach playbook, and they were like, "He doesn't have a playbook out there. So what you're looking at is just somebody drew it up and is trying to." And I'm looking at it, and then I listen, and I'm like, "This is too easy. Like it's just too easy." So then you kind of get away from like it's too easy because you got to have all this stuff, and then, but it's like I learned make it easy and just hide the stuff. Like it's like window dress it to make it look different, but you're running the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to do now.
I think it's a good call. Have your core concepts, and then that way, when you rep one of your concepts and you have a variation of it, like mesh, well, really you're repping all of them for the quarterback standpoint because the reads don't change. And what so oftentimes coaches do is they put a whole brand new thing in there, and that changes the read, and you don't have any of those reps. Versus with Leach, it's like you have these certain core concepts, and we'll dress them up a number of different ways. So when I rep one of them, I rep all of them. So really what you're doing is you're mastering the concept.
Right.
And I know for me, that helped me play at an elite level. And I've seen it with so many coaches and players. When they implement that, they get the results that they want. And, I think with coaches, yeah, you want the creativity. You want every idea is great. It's not like we're not short on ideas out there. Like, sure, there's a ton of it. It's just what can you execute and what you want to prioritize. Really, what the air raid is about, it's about less is more. It's not even about throwing the football X amount of times, because really at the core of it, that's not what it's about. It's about taking what the defense gives you. If you have a light box, we need to efficiently run it. If we have a heavy box, we need to be able to throw it. If we have free access on the perimeter, we need to be able to use those now screens, and so it's really about attacking where the defense is weak. And in order to be able to do that, you need to have your core identity so the quarterback can be empowered to get you in what you need to get to. I was just talking to a college coach just last night. He was asking about our run check system. And really what it came down to is if we had 10 run plays that we tried to master, well, how can I get the quarterback to be able to get us into the looks that we want? You can't. You don't have enough mastery. And then how can you get the offense to be able to rep O-line, all their roles and responsibilities versus certain fronts? Well, you can't. So you have fewer. And then what you do though is you run it at premier looks. And your
Uh-huh.
quarterback is able to get you into those premier looks. And guess what? When you're running it against the premier looks, your offense is going to be able to execute at a higher level because you practice it over and over and over again.
Right.
And it's not about running into bad looks. I see some of these coaches too. It's like you're running a bad play into a bad look. Why? You have the great eraser back there. It's your quarterback. But so often I think coaches are, I had a coach one time say to me, he's like, well, are you going to depend your livelihood on a 18 to 22-year-old kid? I'm like, yeah, I was that 18 to 22-year-old kid. And one of the greatest did. He handed me the keys. But what he did is he created a format and a system to help me be able to understand what he wanted. Now, there were times, yeah, where I might have checked run a little bit too much and I got a butt chewing from it. But it wasn't like Jekyll and Hyde coaching, as I say, where if I did something, then he instantly pulled me or did whatever because he didn't like it. And in order to get to that point, I know I'm going on a tangent here, but everyone hears the famous 6 day from Coach
Uh-huh.
Leach that we ran 4 verticals all day. Well, really, it's not accurate.
Right.
Really, if you really want to talk about what it was called check day in a sense. And what our rules were is we could check run, we could check screen, and we could tag anything off of 4 verticals. So the pass play was 4 verticals, sure. But what did it do? Well, it trained the quarterback. He'd give you a formation, and then you needed to check what's the box, what's our leverage. And it allowed the quarterback to take the power and check. So, how many coaches really allow their quarterbacks for 4 practices out of fall camp and 4 practices out of spring to just call it? None, in my opinion. So therefore, when they want him to do things in the game, they don't have the equipment and the tools to be able to do it. And so I think Coach Leach's greatest strength was he allowed and empowered his quarterbacks greatly to be able to get us in and out of the looks that weren't, um, I guess, in our benefit. So we had the eraser at the end and the expo marker, per se, if you wanted to go mano a mano on the whiteboard.
Hmm. It was, sorry, when you were talking about Coach Leach and like you were talking about high school coaches, because I did that. Hey, if it's a too high, what are they going to do of a too high? You've got man, you've got this, you got this. And then the older I got, I'm like, the only reason why I want them to know there's too high is just because of how they're lined up. I don't care what they're running. You're going to see what they run. Um, I had Coach Sage on here one time. He's tight ends coach at Toledo. He
Yeah.
coached 1 year at Washington State.
Yeah. He's our outside receiver coach.
Yeah, he's like, he told me a funny story. He goes, I interviewed with Coach Leach. He goes, it was however long. We didn't really talk about football until the end. It was about something else and blah blah. And he goes, hey, show me what you guys did here at your other stops. Like, he was interested in their pass game. So he was showing them. And I guess at the end he said, listen, I'm going to hire you, but if you ever teach my receivers what too high, one high is, you're fired because we don't need that. Like, that's not what we do.
Yeah. No, it's so true. It's like he wasn't concerned about football jargon, which is really funny because people view him as like this football Einstein, but he never used the terms like three buzz or cover two. I never once heard him say any coverage besides you need to know, is it man or is it zone? That's all he cared about. And then what he really cared about was our read that was within the play call
Uh-huh.
and going through the read because he always like, well, what if they fell down? What if they mess up? They mess up too.
Right.
And which that's what I loved. It's like I think having a knowledge of the coverages helped you go through the reads quicker. But I love his tried and true pure progression stuff. I know if Kurt Warner's listening to this, I was at a little coaches convention or coaches get together that Phil Longo put together, and Kurt made it very well known that he hates pure progression system. But I love pure progression because, like I said, my wife could go in and play quarterback. What's the read? 1 through 5. Okay, find the open receiver. Now, if you have an understanding and a base knowledge of what the coverage is, that can probably help you go through them quicker, but still having the discipline to go through them, which I think cleans things up tremendously. Especially now, defenses are getting so much better at disguising, at
Hmm.
being able to show things late. Like, what's the way, the antidote to be able to beat that? Well, pure progression, go through your reads.
Right. The only right now, because I was part of our offense for the last few years, our OC stepped down. I become it. So I changed the whole pass game to hopefully a air raid system of Mike Leach. I love his. So I'm trying to do it. And I'm trying to teach the quarterback, like, I only care about one person. And it's like it's the flat defenders. Like, that's all I care about because it opens up stick. You can throw it to the running back, look at your slants. I really don't care about anything else. And mesh, I care about press corners. That's about it. Like, I could care less about where everybody else is and I motion a lot to try to help them see if it's man zone, if they don't move. And I said, but I really only care about one person and the box. I said, I care about the box and I care about the outside guy right there. That's it. Because they're going to tell you what's happening.
Yeah.
And he's learning it slowly, and learning how in this system to kind of throw people open too. Like, you see, they're going to be open, like, get it there, and they're going to get there. When we're passing, our head coach wants me to run the football. We're going to run the football. But when I pass it, it's got to be efficient. So that's why I went to this, because it's easy enough. And like, I asked the players their opinion because I've changed it. I said, hey guys, I want your opinion, like the seniors. Is this too difficult? What do you like? And they said, oh my gosh, this is easy. Like, we're getting it. And just getting their feedback has been amazing of like, where's this? Some of them, no offense, before was like, where were these pass plays before? And I'm like, they've been there for years. We just never ran them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I'd say, like, I don't know all the answers. I only coached college football for really 1 year and a quarter because I resigned after spring ball last year. But from taking what I know from Coach Leach and the great coaches I've had, how can you allow your players to play fast? And that is not bogging them down mentally. You didn't recruit a kid, or in your case, you don't have a kid that runs a 4.5 through your high school system and slow him down to be a 4.7 because he's overthinking. So it's
Mhm.
like, how can I, as the coordinator and the play caller, create a system that is easy for them to understand? And like I said, dirty words in football, easy, simple, less, you know, it's like all those things, especially to a defensive minded guy, maybe who is a head coach, where he's like, well, you might not have enough bullets in the chamber. No. We have plenty. It's just we need to be able to execute and run these things efficiently. So I think that would be my advice to you, is just continuing to do a self evaluation of, one, is what we're practicing during the week, is that going to be applicable to be able to be used during the game? I had a great guy. So I was so fortunate. My high school head coach, Utah High School Hall of Fame guy, one of the smartest guys I've ever been around, still very close. I call him in my core five. And our strength coach in high school was a guy named Matt Ray. And Matt Ray couldn't get a job anywhere because he was bringing a different approach to strength training, right? He wasn't the macho type of guy
Mhm.
that just lifted heavy weights and, bang your head on the barbell. Matt brought a scientific approach, and what he used was this term called the transfer effect. And what the transfer effect was is, are these lifts going to be able to transfer to the field and help you become a better football player, rather than just getting strong to be strong or running to run? So we ran with a purpose, we lifted with a purpose, and it all was designed per position to specifically help that player become more, transfer effect on the field. Well, long story, Matt goes to IMG after. I mean, he went through all these things. I'm telling you, high schools turned Matt down. Goes to IMG, then the head coach of Indiana, I can't remember his name, picks him up, and then has success at Indiana. And guess who hires him? Nick Saban. And so now he's with Nick Saban. They go win a national championship, and then he was with the New Orleans Saints, and now he's out right now, and I'm sure he's going to get picked back up, and some team's going to be very fortunate to get him. But Matt, incredible, was breaking the mold, but it all came down to this transfer effect. A quarterback shouldn't lift like a lineman. A lineman shouldn't lift like a linebacker.
Mhm.
How can you get them to? So same thing within your practices. What's the transfer effect? Are we just going through the motions, or are we really helping our guys become better when it comes to Friday? Am I really helping my quarterbacks with my film session right now to be able to transfer the information so that they apply it? Or am I just going through coach talk and flexing my muscle with how much I know and how much I can get them to recite?
Right, right.
So that's kind of a tangent there.
Oh, no, 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 that's I we were breaking the mold here. I fell in love with, the speed training, Tony Holler, feed the cat stuff, because he's right here in the suburbs, and the sprint-based football stuff, and I fell in love with it, and we broke the mold at this school. The head coach is like, "I'm all for it, Steve, you do it." So I got certified, we started doing it last year. Even the kids would come up to me, "Why are we not sprinting or doing this, and this?" Because 'Cause they've done it since they were kids, and I'm like, "Why am I gonna make you run 2 laps around the track when we're football players? Like, we're not cross
Yeah.
country, we're not, why are we going to constantly hit each other Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then try to play Friday and be healthy? Like, that's not what's gonna happen. Why are we like, it's old school stuff, we all did it, but it was, thinking about it, why am I gonna do that to you guys? Like, maybe there's a day with no shoulder pads and we're just getting better at what we do. Maybe there's a
Yeah.
day where we do hit more. Maybe there's times we take your helmet off and we do walkthroughs, like, and we work on technique. We don't need to bash your head against the brick wall."
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of coaches, they use conditioning and they use all that as a way for toughness, which I think there's a certain degree of that. Certainly. I certainly do. At some point, you're getting diminishing returns, though. The body can't keep up with
Right.
all the demands. So that's where what I do now, mind strength comes in play. It's like, how can you mentally get strong, just like you do in the weight room, without absolutely tearing your body down as you're doing it? And there's just, it blows my mind, because really, if you think about, did you play? Did you
Yeah.
play? So think about your best performance, and then think about your worst performance. It didn't have anything to do with probably your physical state. It had everything to do with your mental state. Yet
Right.
we don't work on it. the coaching emphasis or even the training emphasis for players is how can I get bigger, stronger, faster? How can I perfect my craft? Because I think people think that's going to create some confidence for them, which it does, it certainly does. But when it comes to being able to access that in the game, well, you need to be able to have the mind strength skills and tools to be able to do that. And I think a lot of the coaches, like I said, they use the weight room, they use running, they use, the grueling practices to develop the mental toughness, but at what cost? I think that's good for a certain element, but at some point, you're going to wear your guys out. They're going to be burnt out. The science on it in terms of what the load and all those things, it's not something to be ignored. But you don't need to sacrifice mind strength in order to, you don't even sacrifice mind strength at the cost of quote unquote being soft. You can develop that hand in hand on the side if you utilize a program and system that can help them.
So that's so what you're doing now is a lot of the mental stuff, and I don't want you to give away the secret sauce, but when you come in, like, what does that look like? Because, like, I think I think to us high school coaches, we have so much to do, right? Like, for me, OC, quarterbacks coach, sprint coach. Now I got to help in the weight room. Then you got to
Yeah,
develop. Then you got to worry about. I work in the building. You got to worry about their grades, and you're trying to be a psychologist while you're not certified, and you're trying to do this at the same time.
yeah.
So I think maybe some high school coaches, I've certainly done it where it's let's not focus on that. Focus on this because I got too much going on. So we got to focus on this.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
even college coaches, right? They're
right.
just swamped. You're recruiting, you're working on game plans. Think about this. So in the NFL, they game plan. A certain coach does third down, certain coach does red zone, certain coach does, why wouldn't you have a certain coach work on the mind strength for your players? That's really the thing that I'm offering when I go to certain universities or when I go speak to coaches. It's like you've got your hands full. I'm a master in this area at this particular position. Because really what I'm trying to do right now is my niche, or not trying, what I am doing right now is I've played it from as the player. I've coached it now at the college level and privately and all that stuff. I can provide insight to be an asset to the coach, not take anything away. So what's your message? What is it that you're trying to do with the quarterbacks? What's the goal? What's the foundation? I will reinforce that message through mind strength training and be able to help them going into each and every game. So I have like what I call the signal caller system. And it's a series of things that I do pre-game and a series of things to do after the game. But in order to be able to have that foundation, well, I need to sit down with the coaches, be able to see what direction they want to go with. Okay, now I take what they just said, I put it through my system to be able to create a plan moving forward to reinforce what it is they want. So really what I'm doing is I'm trying to help apply what they're talking about, get their quarterback to apply it. And if you think about it at the highest level, they're paying a guy million, $2 million. Well, what are you doing to really get the ROI from them? Why don't you give yourself every possible tool to help you with that? And that's where I come in to be able to really, I'm just an advocate for the coach. I'm really just there to be able to help the coach's message get through from a mind strength perspective to then help the quarterback unlock the full tools and just let it rip on Saturday.
Right.
So I haven't really done as much with the high school level in terms of the modeling for that. At the high school level, I work with players individually rather than the high school bringing me in because, quite frankly, the budget at high school is just it's not something where they have thousands of dollars to be able to pay for that. At universities, they do. They pay people all the time, and it's like, well, what would you pay in order to maximize the ROI of $1 million or $2 million or $4 million that you're paying your quarterback, or what would you pay in order to ensure that your salary yourself is going to be okay and safe? And that's kind of how I just want to be an additive for them to be able to do their job at a high level and reinforce what they're talking about. So I can't really go in and dive in and tell you this is exactly the system because it's a case by case deal.
Mhm.
At the foundation of it, though, it's reinforcing the message from the coach from a mind strength perspective and giving the quarterback skills and tools and processes to be able to handle and equip themselves to unlock their full God given potential when they're playing.
Right. Do you see this continue to grow? Because was it Lane Kiffin saying like they were the first college team to have like a sports psychologist and stuff like that, and the mind and the mental health and everything? Because maybe it happened with you too. Growing up, that wasn't. It was even. I
Yeah.
was telling my wife yesterday. If you had a headache, you poured water on your head and you just went back out there. Like there was no like there was. It was just get through it, and there
Yeah.
was no mental health. There was no. It was suck it up and like get through it, and we deal with that now. Like, do we are we babying the kids if they're saying something? Like, there are times I do say "suck it up," but I have to find the right moment. Be like, yeah, you do have to suck it up, but like normally it's a play.
It's
Like you drop the
yeah.
ball or whatever it is. But this, I feel like this
It's
is something that's growing.
well, I call it a mind strength movement, and really I want to be on the forefront of it. It's not I really am positioned. It's not I don't, what I do is not mental health. It's not that.
Mhm,
I'm not qualified at all for that. I'm an advocate for it, right? I'm somebody who uses therapy and all that stuff within my own mind strength practice. What I'm offering here is you have a strength coach. You go to the weight room, you get strong. You have a position specific coach, right? All these quarterback coaches are out there to help them perfect their craft. Why wouldn't you do the same thing with your most valuable asset, which is your mind? Why
mhm,
wouldn't you put the same time, energy, and effort into that? Now, there is a stigma still, right? You have the coaches, sometimes the old school coaches that think, well, we don't need that. That's soft, or we're handling it within what we're doing. What I'm offering is something completely different. It's just like going to the weight room, but it's for your mind. And it's
mhm,
my niche is for quarterbacks because I feel like I have such great value that I can help the coach's message add value to that quarterback. Or if the quarterback works with me individually, being able to help them unlock their tools that they train so dang hard for. And it's been really fun for me because I know what they're thinking going
right.
into a game. I know when they throw a pick or they throw a touchdown or when they have a great game and 450 people text them and they have all these handlers these days. There's more distraction now than ever, and it's needed now more than ever. And so it's like I want to be able to provide the tools for these kids and be a great resource for them because I wish I would have had a guy like me playing. I think it would have
Mhm,
helped me tremendously. Now I had a mental performance coach and he was phenomenal and other people around me, yet nobody played the position. Nobody knew exactly what I was going through versus I know what they're going through. Sure, there's a little bit difference with the NIL stuff, but I got a taste of that with the NFL in terms of money
mhm,
being a product. Now they're making more than I did as a NFL player, but it's the same principle and same idea. So it's just, being there as an advocate for the quarterback and being there as an advocate for the coach to be able to help the message and the coaching go through so they can apply it on the field and cut it loose and play the best that they absolutely can.
that's awesome. I know you got other things, so to end it, I have to ask, and you've probably done before. Give me a favorite Mike Leach story. I loved Mike Leach. Everything about it. I have all of his books. I studied him. I did everything. Give me a Mike Leach story. Give me a good one.
I should have prepared. I always get this question asked, and I always preface it with, "There's so many stories I cannot say." There are so many stories that I can't say, but let me try to figure out a PG one. I've told the one where, we're down at Oregon State before, and I think we're down 21 points. I come in at halftime, and normally a coach is diabolically drawing up things to storm our comeback. Well, he's on Rosetta Stone. He's practicing his Spanish, and then, he calmly. It's like they're not doing anything that we didn't see on film, and he calmly goes out and tells the team that if we didn't start playing and picking up, we would scrimmage all day the next day and that our lives would be miserable. So that's just like the subtle leachisms. There was a time that what he would always do, and I think this is actually a great thing. And I won't tell you exactly what he said, but say he saw my mind kind of going in places because I could overthink. I certainly could. He'd call it paralysis by analysis or whatever. And he would see maybe me getting in a little bit of a rut, and he'd come over and he would redirect my mind on something that had nothing to do with football. Now, I'm not going to tell you what that was as key word for it because I don't want the women listening to this to be offended or anything in that regard. But he would say that, and the first time I heard it, I was stunned. I just kind of like chuckled to myself, and it redirected my mind. It was kind of like the old John Candy, Joe Montana comment, where we're in the huddle or they're in the huddle, and he looks, hey, is that John Candy? Rather than everyone worrying about the outcome of the Super Bowl game-winning drive, they redirected their focus on something else, had some humor. So Leach was great about that, and then he was so good in key situations of staying calm where maybe I see some of these coordinators and that shows the picture of them or the camera on them before a game-winning drive, and you could almost tell, hey, they're gonna do great based on how the coach looks and his demeanor and the quarterback. And Leach brought a lot of calming presence to me in those situations. And one of my favorite lines, hey, what do you want here? He says, I'm thinking like, are we running mesh? Are we running cross? What are we doing? He goes, probably a touchdown. And I just started laughing. I'm like, all right, that's just who he was. That's who he was. And he's just so calm, cool, and collected. And yeah, from the story standpoint, I certainly got my butt chewed a number of times. I wrote a story about this. People seem to like it, so I guess I could say it on here. But we played Cal in 2017. It was Friday the 13th. I never believed in that stuff beforehand until this day. On the way to the game, the bus breaks down. The opening kickoff, we return for a touchdown. It gets called back due to a holding. And then I proceed to throw 5 interceptions that game. It was so bad, I threw an interception on a shovel pass. And then there was another interception that hit off 3 Cal players like what's one of those little ping pong type deals? What is
Oh
it?
yeah, yeah.
Arcade game. I
Yeah,
can't even remember what it's called, but it was like that. And just had bad luck. Well, the next day, Leach walks in and he just stares right at me. He's like, Falk, you got to be the slowest mother effer I've ever seen in the entire nation. I'm so tired of watching you. Now he did say, I'm so tired of you watching you jack the ball off back there like an effing statue. So that's as deep as I'll go into it. I left that out of the writing, but so sorry for your listeners. That's
yeah.
still very PG-13 when it came to Mike Leach and maybe the ass chewing that he'd give you.
No, I love it. No, I appreciate your time on here. Thank you so much for coming on. I had to end it with that.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. Well, appreciate you having me, and best of luck to you this fall, not only as a coach but being a new father.
Thank you.